Duke the Proud Engine. Written by Richard Jordan, narrated by Sean Gannon. Peter, Sam, and Sir Handel were delighted when Duke was home again. For many years they thought their old friend had been lost. But when a search party discovered him by accident, he had been rescued and brought to the railway where Rheneas and Skarloey worked. Now, once again reunited, Duke, Sir Handel, and Peter Sam would spend the evenings together, much like they used to, on their old railway, talking about the old days happily before its closure. Peter, Sam, and Sir Handel also did their best, as when they were together, to tell Duke all that had happened whilst he had been tucked away in his shed all that time. The old engine was finding it difficult to make sense of everything. Our crews can contact signal towers and stations by radio now, Grandpuff. Peter Sam smiled one evening.
What? I'm sorry.
Radio waves, Grandpuff. They fly through the air and transfer information from one place to another. And they fly through the air and transport information from one place to another.
Whatever happened to word on mouth?
Oh, radio waves are more efficient than word of mouth, Grandpuff, Peter Sam continued. Very interesting, Duke sighed. Sir Handel and Peter Sam knew that this was what Duke said. Sir Handel and Peter Sam knew this was what Duke would say, when he didn't approve of something.
What other contraptions do they have nowadays?
All sorts of things, said Sir Handel. They have diesels working on the railway now.
Diesels? What are those?
Duke didn't like the sound of the word diesel. They are fancy new engines, Grandpuff. They're like us, but they don't need water or coal.
What else is there to run?
Petrol.
Petrol? What's petrol?
Oh. Oh, we're sorry, Grandpuff. We didn't realize. Oh, we're sorry, Grandpuff. We didn't realize it's been that long since we left you. We'll explain more later. See you tonight, Grandpuff. So saying, the two engines scampered away to fetch their trains for the morning. Duke was left with mixed feelings of anger and confusion. How can an engine be an engine if he doesn't run on coal or water? Later that day, Duke was pulling a freight train down the line into the station which met to the main line. Later that day, Duke was pulling a freight train down the line to the station which met the main line. He normally met big engines like Gordon, Henry, or James, and exchanged greetings with them, but today they found an engine he had never met before. It looked tall and green like Henry, only it was box-shaped. Duke never met a diesel before, but of course we all know this engine to be our friend Boko.
Afternoon. Oh!
Duke jumped.
I'm sorry. Did I startle you? I'm Boko, by the way. Are you a diesel engine? Why, yes, Boko replied. Why do you ask? Oh, just curious, that's all, Duke said sheepishly. I take it you don't use coal or water? Yes, that is correct. I run on petrol, actually. My engine won't run with water in my tanks.
Your engine?
You haven't met any diesels, have you?
No, I can't say I have. Why are there diesels around here nowadays?
Why, we diesels are more efficient and... Why, we diesels are stronger and more efficient, Boko smiled.
Well, really? Duke bellowed. Oh, very interesting. Boko was only joking, but Duke didn't realize this. Oh, stronger indeed. More efficient indeed. We'll just see about that. Duke fumed all the way to the top station, thinking how he could prove Boko wrong. He then spotted a long string of slate cars waiting to be taken back down the line. That gave him an idea.
I'll take those cars over there,
he told the station master. The station master looked puzzled. He knew that the cars were meant for Skarloey and Sahandel, and wasn't sure Duke could handle them alone. He contacted both Skarloey's and Sahandel's drivers on their phones, but they said they were very busy and appreciated Duke's help. So, given the all clear, he was coupled up to the cars and pulled them smoothly away out of the yard as easy as pie. He was soon underway and found it easy to pull the long train.
This will show that old diesel. Such modernization would never suit his grace.
But what Duke didn't realize was that the line sloped downward for the first stretch. They were soon climbing up the hill when Duke suddenly found the train was getting heavier.
Not long now. We best not give up. Whew.
In the approach to the junction, the line begins sharply before descending again. The engines knew to accelerate here, but Duke was still learning the route, and he had forgotten. Then it happened. His freight cars suddenly broke free and began rolling backwards down the hill. But they soon came to a stop. Luckily, no one was hurt.
I figured this would happen, muttered the conductor as Duke backed down into his coaches again. I figured this would happen, muttered the conductor as Duke backed down onto the cars again. This train is too long for one engine to handle alone. This train is... I figured this would happen, muttered the conductor as Duke backed... I reckon this would happen, muttered Duke as back... I reckon this would happen, muttered the conductor as Duke backed down to the coach. I reckon this would happen, muttered the conductor as Duke backed down into the cars again. This train is too long for one engine to handle alone. I'll radio Rusty to help. Great idea, smiled Duke. The two of us will show those diesels what for.
his driver pondered. You do realize Rusty is a diesel, right?
You don't mean...
Duke found out his driver was right. The little orange diesel buffered up to the caboose and to push from behind. Ready when you are, she tooted. Duke muttered a reply, and they were soon climbing up the hill again. With Rusty pushing from the rear, he realized how the train was easier to pull. With Rusty pushing from behind, he realized how the train was easier to pull. They were soon coasting down to the station. Duke was very impressed.
You really kept those cars in order, youngster, he smiled as Rusty ran round. I would never have been able to get up that hill. You really kept those cars in order, youngster, he smiled as Rusty ran round. You really kept those cars in order, youngster, he smiled as Rusty ran round. I would never have been able to get up that hill if not for you.
Well, we all have to help each other, Rusty smiled. What's the use of having more than one engine otherwise?
I'll say, you diesels aren't so bad after all, Duke grinned.
That evening, Peter, Sam, and Sir Handel returned to the sheds, howling with laughter. They had heard the whole story of how Duke the Proud Engine had bitten off more than he could chew and gotten stuck on a hill.
Well, smiled the old engine, I still may be old and set in my ways, but I now know how useful diesels can be.
The three engines heard a distant horn as Boko rolled past with an evening passenger train. Duke whistled in return and looked forward to working with diesels some more in the future.